Hey there, everyone, and welcome to our discussion about the state of superheroes and media. I am joined by Mr. Chris Metalblade427.
Hello, it's good to be here. This is a very interesting topic, especially around not only like this time of year, but just with so much happening with the superhero, genre and everything. So this is going to be a pretty interesting discussion going forward.
Especially with that Civil War hype.
Woo,
we'll get back to
which
that.
Teams? Yeah, really.
So, I wanted to start off with a very kind of, simple introductory topic of how do you feel that superheroes are treated in the media right now? Like, do you think it's too much? Are you satisfied? Do you want more?
Always want more, ever. I'm never satisfied. But in all honesty, as far as the way that they're treated in the media, right now they really are mass marketed. I mean, it's like you had a lot of superhero movies come out like, way back in the day. And I think a lot of this started back in 2008 when Iron Man came out. Because prior to Iron Man, you had, your Spider-Man trilogy, you had Fantastic Four, you had X-Men. You had a lot of these superhero movies that came out, but none of them were really ever interconnected with each other. Once Iron Man came out in 2008, yeah, the movie itself was all about him, but that one last little section at the end when, Nick Fury came out and mentioned Avengers, you had an entirely new take on the superhero genre just blow up from there. And I don't think Marvel truly knew what they had at the time. Like, they had a great concept to make their big universe where every hero that they put out was part of one grand story. And in a sense, at the time, it was a great idea because you have comic books coming to life. You have childhood memories being shown to you on the big screen with real people and exciting, and it's amazing. Now, it's like, it's almost expected. Like, everybody must have now one complete story through all of their movies, or else it just won't matter. And not only are we coming through the movies, but we have TV series and TV spots, and every little thing now has to connect, where I believe people are starting to now, like, overlook the important stuff, like character development and actual stories that work. Because when you have, like, the movies mixing with the way that S.H.I.E.L.D. turns out, which then goes into the TV shows, but then the TV shows start doing their own rules, but they have to remember it just gets ridiculous at times. And I think the studios need to step back, really, and not put a halt on hero movies, because, I mean, they're planned out from now until, 2026 or something stupid like that?
As far as what they've
But
announced.
they need to, like, I think, yeah, really, who knows whatever the hell else it is that they want. But they need to, like, really take a look at what it is that they created and kind of almost get it back on track. Like, I really liked Iron Man. I thought the first Iron Man was really good. And I know the rest of Phase 1 had mixed reviews, but at least it was consistent with itself. I just don't think that the later movies and incarnations and everything like that for, like, the TV series and everything really follow each other's storylines. At least that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's a kind of a point of no return. Like, now it seems like everyone complains that if there's something that doesn't work. Like, one thing I've noticed lately with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show is they had their tie-in with Civil War, just like they've had with all the other past movies. But they've been fighting this big Inhuman character named Hive, who, like, has this, basically world-ending agenda. And they're like, he's gonna kill everyone if we don't stop him. And it's like, call in the Avengers. No, but he's gonna stop us. Call in the Avengers. Like, stop arguing. Call in the Avengers. Like, they can't, because that's the TV show.
Right. And it's like, even in the TV show themselves, they mention the Avengers. Mm-hmm. They have referenced the Avengers, and you've even seen, I'm not fully up to date on, of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I know enough, and I know that they have brought in characters from the movies to the show. So it's not like they can't do it. It's that they won't. And because they have to write the story in order to, like adhere to the rules of the show, it doesn't make sense. Like, come on.
A lot of it comes down to the budget, because they've gotten so many, like, big-name actors on the movies, because that, you know, that sells a movie, but they can't really afford them on the TV show. Like, Sam Jackson was kind of an exception, because he will do anything. They got Lady Sif, who's pretty cool, but she's not, like, the main character or anything. I mean, she's on a TV show now, like that actress, so obviously she's not above TV. They've gotten a few of the other kind of minor characters, and then people, like, in those universes. But really, aside from Coulson, there hasn't been, like, a major crossover with the movies. But yeah, on the note of actual, like, crossovers and things like that, I think a big problem with that is the need to tie everything together when it's not necessarily needed. Like, that really hurt Age of Ultron, because instead of just having, like, a cohesive movie, they used that movie to lay the groundwork for every other movie coming out. And yeah, Civil War did that a little bit too, but it did it while still telling a good standalone movie. And I think that's the key, is to focus on having a good product first and foremost. And then if that product can tie into other things, great.
But like you said, even though the movie had its own storyline and plot to it and everything with the Avengers and everything, it felt more like, oh yeah, so we're doing Phase 3 next. You want to watch our Phase 3 movies? Oh yeah, this is what's going to happen in Phase 3. It's like, I'll worry about Phase 3 when those movies come out, which isn't going to be for another several years. Like, I want this now. I want you to show me something cool, something new, something interesting. And Age of Ultron really ended up being promo spots for Phase 3 and a reboot of Avengers 1. And it felt like there was no heart that went into it. I mean, I liked Ultron as a villain. I thought he was really well done. But, like, the Avengers, which apparently is rare. Apparently villains are very hard to come by in the Marvel universe. I don't agree with that personally. I've liked all the villains, but a lot of people seem to give them a lot of hate, or, like, people don't like the way that they're portrayed. I just wish that more of that was in Age of Ultron. Something new, something a little bit more original. Like, the Ultron story had so much potential to it.
And their biggest focus was on Thor Ragnarok. Nobody cares about Thor.
It's so true.
Fight me.
Like,
I don't care.
I've never seen Dark World, but I've heard enough about it to be like, I'm going to watch it with a grain of salt, and hopefully it's not as bad as people say it is, especially considering it came after Winter Soldier, if I'm not mistaken. And Winter Soldier is like an amazing movie, and then you have Ragnarok, and you're like, oh. But, like, going back to Phase 1, I didn't mind the Thor movie. I thought it was actually kind of funny at certain points. But it wasn't on the same level as Iron Man. Like, that was just a really, really good movie. I also really like Captain America, but we'll move over from that one.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. They've done so many, like, better characters. Like, you know, even second-rate, third-rate characters, like Ant-Man, for example. I mean, nobody really knew a lot of people didn't know who he was that weren't already fans, at least. And now everyone's like, oh, Ant-Man's so cool. And, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, and, like, all these characters. And then you have Thor, who's, like, actually been around a really long time, but just doesn't have that much to share.
I mean, to be fair, that was kind of the same thing that happened to Iron Man back in 2008. Because I remember, you know, you go through, you watch, like, you know your big stars. Spider-Man was big. X-Men was big. And then once they started giving out trailers for the Iron Man movie, I can remember a lot of people being like, Iron who? Who is this? Like, what is this guy or whatever? Then as soon as Iron Man got released and Robert Downey Jr. did, like, the best, like, role play of ever, like, he is Tony Stark, like, forever and always, that's when Iron Man became big. And then, like you said as well, Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I think it just shows that Marvel can print money with no matter what character they have. And, yeah, because you have Thor, Chris Hemsworth, like, oh my god, there's this big, muscular guy with the wavy golden locks, and everybody loves him. Oh my god, let's just put him in movies over and over again. Okay, Thor 1, fine, you need an establishing movie. Thor 2, alright, we need to fill space for Phase 2, because apparently no one cares about Phase 2. But do you really need a Thor 3?
Thor
like,
3
seriously.
is, like, to be fair, Thor 3 is supposed to be, like, the game changer of this next phase. Like, we had...
According to Age of Ultron, it's going to be.
Well, yeah, but we had, like, Winter Soldier that kind of, changed the face of the movies from that point on. And apparently Thor Ragnarok is supposed to do that from this point on. So I'm kind of interested in that one. But the first two just felt like filler, like you said.
as far as Thor 3 changing the face of the Marvel Universe at this point, I don't know because I haven't seen it. No one else has seen it. I would consider Civil War more like that because now you have a distinct split between the two like factions of heroes right now, and I think that that's a little bit more important than Thor's movie. But I guess if we're doing a big build-up to the Infinity Stones,
right,
he's going to be more information for that. I don't know. I consider the heroes being split in the middle more of an impact on the overall storyline than Infinity Wars. But I don't know. Again, there's still so many more movies to come out before then.
I think the next few are Doctor Strange, which is going to be a standalone, and Thor Ragnarok, which doesn't really even take place on Earth. No. Those are the next two, aren't they?
And then Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I believe, comes out. Does that come out before Infinity Wars?
I'm not sure, but that's also not on Earth. So it's like they're not going to get back to the Avengers for a while, really. So is that really that much of a game changer?
Black Panther. Black Panther is going to have his own movie come out, I believe, which is then, on Earth. And now, because of Civil War, you're now introduced to Spider-Man, and he's going to have his own standalone thing. So...
Well, yeah, it sounds like
I guess
the Spider-Man movie is going to be more of an Avengers movie than the next few Marvel movies.
It actually could very well be. I mean, I'm not like... I like Spider-Man. I really enjoyed Spider-Man in Civil War, and I was looking forward to Homecoming anyway, even though I hated the title. But now that I saw, Tom Holland as Spider-Man, it's nice to see at least them taking that direction. Because Spider-Man in the media, like, just besides the movies, like, he's had his Ultimate Spider-Man TV show that's been on for I think they're going on season 4 soon, and that's a high school student. Spider-Man, I think the modern Spider-Man comics has him as a high school student. So it's nice to see them take, like, the modern take on Spider-Man into the movies, and it gives someone like me, who's known Spider-Man for a long time and everything, just that little bit of a change to it. So it's not this typical, Peter Parker working for the Daily Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson, which I hope he's in it somehow, but it's still a different aspect of the character. And at least that's good that they're changing it up a little bit. But at the same time, I'm still kind of worried that if they change it too much, it's going to get lost. Like, all what they're trying to strive for is going to get lost.
Which I think we can use that to transition into our next topic, which is, aside from oversaturation, the constant indecision and reboots. The fact that a lot of these characters have been seen by, 2 or 3 different actors in the last 10 to 20 years. Even the ones that weren't technically rebooted, like War Machine, still different actor.
Right.
This idea, like, which granted that wasn't their fault. Terrence Howard is a turd. But it's still that idea of like they can't sort things out and just have it be consistent across the board. Even just the fact that we've seen, like, in Days of Future Past, there were 2 versions of those characters in the movie. It's a little confusing to people that don't know the old ones because it was rebooted and then like they brought those characters together and then it's like they move on with the new cast separate from the old ones that were shown in that movie, and it's like that's more confusing than time travel.
Let's take the concepts of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch then, if you're even just going in that route, where you have Days of Future Past and then X-Men Age of Ultron, which is supposed to be the exact same characters, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in both sides, played by 2 different actors and actresses with 2 kind of different backstories. But it's like they want you to believe that both characters are the way that they're supposed to be, but they're not.
And then, like, in Age of Ultron, they had, both of them, but Quicksilver was killed. Spoilers. It's like 2 years old. Deal with it.
Yeah, really.
And they just have Wanda moving on, but they can't call her Scarlet Witch because Fox owns the rights to that name. So it's like, where do you draw the line? Like, just let them coexist like Spider-Man. Spider-Man is proof that these companies can make their own movies but still get along.
And with that in mind, it's like maybe one day, like, the stars will align or something like that, and Fox and Marvel will work together. What do you do in a situation like that, where you have a Quicksilver and a Scarlet Witch on one side and a Quicksilver and a Scarlet Witch on the other, but, just based on what you said, one side doesn't have a Scarlet Witch and one side doesn't have a Quicksilver. So are they going to do some type of weird crossover where, like, Quicksilver runs through time, and now, oh wait, we're part of this universe now. Let's all be, he's not like Quicksilver's fast, but he's not the Flash. I'm sorry, he's really not. Like that's his ability. And DC is its own separate entity, which is its own ridiculousness. But I'm just saying right now, like when Fox and Marvel come together, they've already established the ideas for those two sets of characters. Now you want to make them one, and now you got to do more rewrites for the story. And people are, again, just going to get confused because they don't know who's who or where they're supposed to fit in. Like, you're going to have somebody that's never seen an X-Men movie, but have seen all the Avengers movie. Once the two of them merge together and the story comes out, they're going to be like, so when was Wanda's father Magneto? How did that happen?
But you also have to realize there is bearing in the comics with the multiple universes, which have since collapsed. But at one time, there was, a bunch of different characters and a bunch of different universes, and they each had their own kind of origins and things like that. It wasn't so extreme as, like, the issues with rights, because obviously Marvel owns all of their own characters. They just decided to make it confusing so that they could have multiple books at the same time and make money.
Right.
So, technically, Marvel is still getting all this money. I mean, like, Fox owns the rights to these Marvel characters, but Marvel gets royalties for the characters. Like, if they wanted to make a deal, they could. So, I mean, it's not that big a deal that there's different, like, if you think of it as different universes, because that's how the comics work, too. I just think it's confusing when, like, they compete with each other. Like, Days of Future Past is like, oh, we're having Quicksilver, and then Avengers shoehorns Quicksilver in, just to kill him. It's like, why? That's petty. And it's confusing.
And then that actually goes good, into what you're saying with them competing with each other, because, this month itself, May 2016, shows that competition pretty much as best as you're going to get it, because you have the Marvel Captain America Civil War coming out in the beginning of the month, and then you have X-Men Apocalypse at the end of the month. And it's like, yeah, they're two separate companies, and they have the right to release their movies when they want to release, but I don't know. Just, again, main concept of the oversaturation of superheroes in the media, you're putting them out too close together. At least in my opinion, you are. I mean, good job for X-Men Apocalypse for getting Memorial Day weekend. Fine. Take it. Have X-Men come out then. Have Civil War come out, like, maybe in July. Like, have that a 4th of July weekend thing. Like, it's the same. Like, they're both Marvel properties, even though Fox has one and Marvel technically has, or Marvel Cinema Universe, whatever, has the other. Like, you don't need to release them within a month of each other to spite each other. And then a month before that, you had Batman v Superman. It's like, I can only take so many heroes doing weird movies like this at once. Like, spread it out a little bit. We got a whole year to deal with this.
It is a little much. And to segue, that does kind of take me into the next topic of, a lot of people say that, Marvel needs to get all the rights back to these characters that aren't doing well. Like Fantastic Four. Fox has, ruined that franchise. It's like, give it back to Marvel. Give X-Men back to Marvel. Give everyone back to Marvel so they can do it right. But it's like...
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies that come out, but it's because they're different studios. I mean, you wouldn't have... Which maybe it could be a good thing, I don't know. But you wouldn't have Civil War and X-Men in the same month if they were both owned by Marvel. Because they just wouldn't be able to make those movies that quickly. Especially with trying to tie it all in together, they usually end up having some of the characters from each movie in, the other movies, and it's like, that's just too much. So, I mean, realistically, like, if Marvel owned all of these characters, we might get an X-Men movie every 3 years, and, a Fantastic Four movie every other year, and then, like, that would spread out the, the Iron Mans and the Guardians of the Galaxies and things like that, because they would just have to fit so much more of the stuff into their movie slate. Whereas, if Fox can take on the entire X-Men universe, they can put out things like, the main X-Men movies, the New Mutants that they've talked about, Deadpool.
True.
X-Force, like all these things, Gambit, all of these standalone characters and their universe that can come out, like, in between the other Marvel movies. And we can forget that Fantastic Four even exists because nobody cares about them anymore anyway.
We're really trying to forget that. We really are.
Yeah. And then Marvel, has a deal with Sony for Spider-Man, but Sony is still making that movie on their own. So Marvel doesn't have to worry about putting out a Spider-Man movie as well in their slate. They can just kind of call that, a Marvel movie without having to actually do all of the production and stuff like that. They can focus on their movies and still have a hand in Spider-Man.
And see, that works. Like, that I wouldn't mind. Like, if Fox and Marvel actually came to terms about something like that. Like, sure, I really enjoy the Fox X-Men movies. I really do. I think they're great movies. And I think movies like the Fantastic Four almost bring down X-Men movies, because everyone's like, oh my god, Fox made it? Oh, it's gonna be crap. Oh, no, it's not. It's actually really good. It's just the people that made Fantastic Four really suck. So, yes, I agree with you that Marvel shouldn't have 100% ownership of every one of their properties, because, yes, somebody like Fox will be able to do X-Men. I don't want to say they'll do it better than Marvel, but they've already established themselves as a really good franchise, and I'd be afraid to see what Marvel would take from that. Marvel got Daredevil, and what Marvel did with Daredevil I thought was amazing. You don't need it to be a movie. Let's make it a TV series. And now that it's a Netflix exclusive, I think the Daredevil show on Netflix is absolutely amazing. Yes, you can now take a lot of your other things, like take Daredevil. You know, we have Jessica Jones, we have Luke Cage, we're going to have Iron Fist, Moon Knight. Take Ghost Rider, do that. Take any of these other not so popular characters and put them
lower
into
budget
that
characters.
Right. Okay, yours tomato, whatever you want to say, and put them into that setting. So this way you can still kind of have your universe, but now you have another branching storyline. Because I believe the whole point of, I don't know if they're still doing a Heroes for Hire idea or if they're going to go into the Defenders, but it was supposed to be like heroes at ground level, where you have the Avengers that are supposed to take care of the, you know, bigger threats, the alien invasions or the Hydras or things along that ways. But then you have all these like lower class villains like Purple Man that you don't need the Avengers for. Like, it's almost a waste of their time. So let's call Daredevil. Let's call, you know, Luke Cage. You know, they can do it. And I think that would be a better path for Marvel to do, to also focus on.
Which, that's the kind of thing where I could see those characters spinning off into, like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you know, if they're like, oh, you know, who are we going to get for help? Call the Defenders, not the Avengers. They don't have time for you.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's another
they're fighting each other. Let's call somebody that actually gets along. Oh, perfect. There you go.
Yeah. But that's another example of, like, basically these characters who Marvel Studios owns, but, like, they're not directly working on that stuff. Because, like, a movie takes a lot more time. You can knock out a TV show in, you know, a month or so. They move a lot quicker. So by putting that on Netflix, they're basically saying, here, you know, hand the reins over, we're going to work on the movies. And that works too. Which, granted, Fox is doing that a little bit with X-Men too. They've got a few shows coming out that are based on X-Men.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that kind of stuff would be fine, like if they owned all the rights. But in general, I just don't see why everyone is clamoring for Marvel to own everything. It would just be splitting their focus across too many characters, when if you look at things like Avengers and, like, you know, Civil War, and even Infinity War is upcoming with, like, 70 superheroes, not including other characters.
Oh my god.
Like, there's just too much stuff to juggle. It's going to be a mess. So, like,
absolutely,
let some of these characters belong to other companies who can do them properly. You wouldn't get a Gambit solo movie or a Deadpool solo movie, which I still don't know if we're getting a Gambit solo movie, but that's beside the point.
It's on the docket. It's in, like, the little, you know, timeline thing. Gambit's supposed to be there. At least I thought he was, from what I remember seeing.
It's been delayed so many times I can't keep track.
Oh, yeah.
It might be. Yeah, to go into a bit more of a serious topic, one thing I do like about superhero movies, or at least superhero media, the movies have kind of started to catch on a little bit as they've moved away from just like, oh, cool spectacle, dude, is some of the, like, the meanings behind it all. Like, that's one thing I like about Captain America more than the other franchises, is, like, they have more, like, overt themes and, you know, messages in them. Like, with Winter Soldier about, you know, corporate corruption, and Civil War with, like, you know, the, like, trusting the government and things like that. Like, there's very noticeable themes. And you mentioned Spider-Man being just kind of like a kid in high school. Like, he has to, you know, juggle homework and, like, friends with his superhero duties. And it's just like, he's just some kid, and, like, you can relate to that. And I've always really liked that aspect of it. Aside from just, like, world-ending disasters, like the character moments that things like Age of Ultron didn't take time for.
No, they did not.
And I think it's
Like, there was...
I think you can have these like overdone movies, oversaturated, I should say, but they can all still feel different, and that's kind of nice. Like, it's just a movie that happens to have superheroes in it instead of a superhero movie.
I think that's how, almost how I felt with Deadpool, because it's like, people that don't like superhero movies can actually go watch, like, a movie like Deadpool, for example, and it's something different than the standard superhero movies that have already been out. Like, it's its own formula. It's its own identity in the world, the over-encompassing world of superheroes. And I think that more movies need to almost take like a page from the Deadpool book and start to maybe come out of the standard shell that they're in. Like, you have so many superhero movies that have been coming out throughout the entire years. Since Iron Man in 2008, you got them all the way back from the Blade saga, which is still awesome, by the way. I love the Blades. I'm afraid for them to do reboots of them, but that's completely whatever. If you watched all of those like superhero movies, they almost have a formula to them where you get introduced to the main character, you see them become the superhero, the impending doom that comes out of nowhere, the hero rising from it, and it's all the same thing over and over and over again. It's nice to get a nice fresh take on that formula with something like Deadpool, that his origins, were as important for the character, is not as important as the character himself.
Basically, you're saying that the story that surrounds him and like the kind of character he is more important than the superhero part of his origin. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, because Deadpool himself is a character, and I mean that not just as, he's a character in a book. I mean, like, he's a funny guy. Like, he's probably one of the more unique people, characters, whatever you want to call them, in, comic book history. And just taking that as a character into the movies, it was done really well in the, in his movie and whatnot. And it's like, it just felt different. Yes, there was a bad guy. Yes, there was an overlining story and all. But you get people coming out of it saying, so what was the plot? Who cares? It was Deadpool. And that's what I liked about it. That's what I thought was so good about the movie. It didn't take itself too seriously, but at the same time, there was still kind of a message in it, like willing to go above and beyond for somebody that you love. It may take a little while for you to see it with a lot of corny jokes on it, but I'll take it.
And that's something that I think we're kind of starting to see more, is people getting like more experimental with the superhero genre, so that it's more like it's more I was going to say gender bending, more genre bending.
Well, to be fair, they're doing that too. There is a little bit of the gender bending
one
from here and there, because they do bring in characters to play, which I personally. I know you discussed that a few months ago on the score, but I personally don't really care one way. As long as the actor or actress plays the character correctly, something like that, I really don't care if they switched it around, personally.
But on that topic of change, what kind of things would you like to see changed in the superhero media? Good or bad?
Don't put too much in your films and have the stories that are supposed to be inside of it overshadow each other, because that was one of my biggest problems with Batman v Superman, in that they tried to put in too much to these movies in order to like throw it into the face of the viewer that this is coming, watch this. Like, you want to have each one of the characters for their movies actually shine the way they're supposed to. And that was also another fear that I had for Civil War. With there being so many characters in it, is it just going to be a superhero fest straight through and Captain America's story is going to be lost? Or is there going to be a balance to it? And I think that like the movies that are coming out from here on out, you've already established yourself as the Marvel universe. You have all of these characters and you have so many opportunities for cameos for future movies. Don't overdo it. That's like the biggest thing that I gotta say. Infinity Wars is scaring the hell out of me with the amount of people that they want in that movie, or those movies, I should say, because it's gonna be like oh my God, Robert Downey Jr., 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, gone. And then just next and next and next. It's like, you can't do that. Like, if you want to have a comic book come to life, there needs to be balance. And it's more than just making money. It's a lot about taking the essence that is the character and actually bringing it to life. Don't just do it because you can. Do it because it's the way the character is supposed to develop. That's my hope, that things don't get too over crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I think the main change I would like to see, though, is just less dumbing down for the audience. Like, this era of the nerd, basically. I mean, you know, when superhero movies are the top grossing movies of all time, and everyone seems to be a gamer, I don't think you need to, like, spoon feed an audience the facts. Like, Civil War is kind of a perfect example of this, because they showed things that were basically Easter eggs, and if you didn't understand them, they didn't take away from the movie at all. Like, Giant Man.
Oh, absolutely.
That might be a spoiler, but in the movie, you know, Ant-Man has a moment that is very comic book accurate, and I didn't see coming. But, like, if you don't know anything about it, they didn't reference, you know, anything about it. They just presented that moment, and, you know, you could be like, oh my, it's happening, or cool, that's neat. Like,
I like the way that it was presented as well in Civil War, because it's like that lead up to the point when Giant Man came to be. You know, you have Scott all like, well, I have a plan, but I only tried it once. And like, there was so many, it was really quick, but it was enough subtle hits where, you know, someone that knows kind of the history of Ant-Man and, you know, the many names, granted it was all Hank Pym that did all that, but, you know, Scott Lang came later. But still, like, knowing the little bit of the back history of the character, you're like, are they going to do it? Is he going to do it? Is he going to go big? Oh my God, he's going big! And you can just nerd out for yourself in the theater. So
yeah. And also, like, you know, when he was on the Arrow that they showed in the trailers and all that, like, another cool moment was, like, that's something ripped straight out of the comics. Like, comic book nerds loved it. But if you didn't, it's still a cool moment. And, like, the very end tag, which, again, I don't want to try to spoil, but there's a moment with Spider-Man, and, like, it's very comic book accurate, like, back to his origin in the 60s. And, like, you might not understand it, but it still gets you hyped.
Yeah.
And there's these things, like, people...
I just want to say...
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I actually had, like, a branch off thing. It actually doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about right now, but I kind of just want to bring up the character development of Spider-Man in Civil War really quickly, going back a little bit to what we talked about him being a high school student. You made me reminded me of it when Giant Man was on there. Spider-Man swinging around Giant Man and talking to the other Avengers and saying, do you remember that really old movie that took place in space on that ice planet or something like that? Like, he was distinctly, like, referencing Empire Strikes Back. But I don't know. To me, something like writing like that, like, it's a scene like that I really enjoy in the newer movies, because it's almost like they kind of understand who their audience is, because you need the older... I hate saying that because I'm part of that. The older audience, like ourselves, who remember these characters as kids, now seeing them, and then you have the newer audience who are just discovering these characters for the first time. So you have someone like Spider-Man, who's now supposed to be the high school student, that's supposed to relate to the younger generation. It's all like, remember that old-time movie? And we're just like, damn it, I remember when that was new. Stop it. But it's something like that I hope they do more with in the upcoming movies. Where someone like me can appreciate the joke and the old reference, whereas someone that maybe had just seen Empire Strikes Back today can be like, oh, I get what he means by that.
And another time when they kind of, you know, hid some moments was in Guardians of the Galaxy, which were lost on me because I didn't know anything about the characters going in. So it was kind of cool to, you know, look up online afterwards, like, what is this stuff? Because that's what they're doing, is they're putting these Easter eggs in of, like, you know, in this case, Cosmo the space dog, and Howard the Duck, which I did know about, but, you know, was still a cool moment.
God, Howard.
and like you look up online and like, you know, find what are the Easter eggs from Guardians of the Galaxy, and then you find those things and like you do research on, you know, what the Easter egg is, and then you learn a lot more about these comics. And that's really cool because it's like the movies are educating you on the backstories of these characters, and it's all cross promotion, really. So like it benefits them to do these things as far as hiding little secrets that's going to make someone want to learn more because they're engaged in that art.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's instead of just like giving all the information up front, like here is this thing and here is what it is. This is exposition. That's super boring. Let the audience do it themselves. They're smart people.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of instances like that. I feel like the movie studios or whatever don't give their audience more credit than they should, and then I don't know, like you said, you know, it makes you want to go learn about these characters. And Guardians of the Galaxy is a perfect example because that was one of those franchises from Marvel in the comic book reign where as soon as they said, we're making a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, most people were like, what? Who the hell are they?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, regardless if you did the research or not before you saw the movies, I almost guarantee that after you saw the movie, you were like, all right, I gotta know anything I can about these guys because I am Groot. And that's it.
I am Groot. And to me, it kind of harkens back to, like, Marvel is a comic book company. They serve to sell their characters. Just like Nintendo is, you know, a gaming company. If they make anything outside of, you know, comics or games, whichever you're talking about, like Amiibo, for example, that just serves to introduce you to a character that you might enjoy and then find out where it came from. Then suddenly you're buying the games that go with those Amiibo. You're buying the comics that go with those movies. Like, it all works together. Those things enrich the entire, like, product that you're receiving, which is that character. Or, you know, shirt merchandise. All that stuff.
Oh, no. Yeah. But, you know, just in relating it to all, overall subject matter. Is there oversaturation of the superheroes in, you know, marketing and media and everything? You get a yes and a no. Because, yes, there is, because you do see it everywhere, as you were saying. Shirts, toys, movies, TV shows, games, everywhere. But that's kind of like the natural evolution when something like this hits big. No one back in 2008 when Iron Man first came out would have ever expected what we have today. You know, like they hinted at the Avengers movie at the end of it, but who would have thought that, you know, Ant-Man would be a common like hero people know now as compared to it's just 2006, just 10 years ago. Who knew that? Who knew that? Who knew Iron Man? Like, you know, Hulk. Maybe you knew Thor. I don't know. But it's you need one in order to have the other, and that's just the way that it is.
So while it might seem oversaturated, I think it's helped overall bring awareness, even if that does mean that we have to deal with a little bit too much, maybe, in some months.
Yeah.
But I think it's time to turn the discussion over to the audience and find out what changes you guys would like to see in the superhero media landscape. Do you think it's too much? Do you think it's not enough? Just, you know, kind of give your overall thoughts of what the state is and let us know and we can discuss it further. But I think we're about out of time. So thank you for joining me, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was a lot of fun talking about this, and I look forward to reading what you guys have to say about this in the comments.
Very excited. And if you like this new format, let me know, and we'll continue doing it this way. I just like to, you know, try things out a little differently every now and then. But whether you're watching or listening, I hope you've had fun. And don't forget to check out Metal Blade. I will have his link in the description of the video, and the, you know, annotations, all the podcast information, all that good stuff. He'll be everywhere.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, of course.
I am everywhere.
Until next time, have fun, y'all.
Later.
ABC, also known as a butt crap because I hate them now, recently decided their TV slate for the next season by canceling two of my favorite shows, Gallivant and Agent Carter, and passing on an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spin-off show, Marvel's Most Wanted, after encouraging the studio to write two fan-favorite characters off to make room for said spin-off.